Oh, that's not what I want to share. Okay. This move to the bottom. Okay. I believe you can see my screen. I don't know which one of you
Yeah.
can see.
We are seeing your Facebook
Okay.
page pretty much.
Yes. So I think LinkedIn. Where's my LinkedIn? Okay, so that is me, Ruben from POM. I think mostly I use fancy rules on most of the pages because that's my nicky, and I am a web developer. I am a progressive learner, a coding tutor, and I created Music Market for fun. So if you like me or you whether you don't like me, you just want to follow me, you can go to my LinkedIn page, Frimpong Ruben. You can like my Facebook page. You see some of I usually train kids to program. So you can go to my LinkedIn page or you can go to my Twitter. Yes. Can you see my screen?
Nope.
Nope.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
dropped off.
Okay. So my Twitter,
Yeah, we can
that's
see it now.
Ruben underscore coder. And you can follow me on those pages too. So yes, that is me. That's all about me. I think we can hold on for the rest to introduce before we continue, right, Eddie?
Yeah, we can go through. Everyone can introduce themselves, and then we can start. Chinese might be like a catch your ten.
Okay, sure. I'll go ahead. Cool web. All right, my name is Charles Cyril Nete. I am a software engineer based in China. I've been in China for the past 7 years. I've done PHP for about 3-4 years, and I am currently a full-time Node.js developer. So yeah, but I also do mentorship with an organization here called Code Bar, and the focus is to help underrepresented minority groups enter programming. So I do mentorship on the side as well. And I also do a lot of community development here. I have an organization called Africans in Tech Shanghai, which is to bring together all the African developers in this space together and just like have like a chill time. So yeah, that's a summary about me and what I do.
Okay, then I guess I'll go next. So my name is Edmond Menta. I'm also a PHP Laravel developer. I currently reside in Luxembourg, um, where I work as a solutions engineer. Um, yeah, I also do a little bit of community work, not in Luxembourg currently, mostly training, but it's for profit on Code Mentor. And that's about it for me. Yeah, anyone else can take the stage, or make I just go through the
Somebody's hand
participants.
is already up.
Sorry?
Somebody's hand is already up.
Oh, okay, Samuel Hagan. Yeah, I think then Samuel can go next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So the hand no, I know me I raise up. I don't know. I don't know how you raise that.
By the day, me, I see your hand.
Okay, but no problem. My name is Samuel Hagan. I mean, my final year, I'm done. I was in Care University. I completed this year. And I currently do Laravel and PHP, but I used to do mobile, so Java. I think I started programming in 2015. So I have a couple of apps. I didn't really take the programming serious until like a year ago. I started taking it seriously. So it's basically Java. I'm doing Kotlin. I do PHP. I also know front end a little bit, the traditional front end, not the framework stuff, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Enough to get stuff done. But I'm planning to learn those technologies as well. I currently work with Native Temple. We are in Kumasi. We're a software development company. And then we also have an educational branch that is Smart Tribe. We train kids. It's basically kids, and then those in junior high school and stuff like preteen kids to program, to use abacus, and to basically know technology and stuff like that. So that is what I do. I'm programming. I'm a developer with them at the moment, and I'm planning because I finished school. I actually studied building construction in school, but I want to do a little IT. So I'll be intern. I'll be doing my national service there as a developer, mainly using PHP and Laravel to do projects over there. So that is it. I'm done.
I think you can go mute. There's a bit of like noise in your background, so you can go mute for now.
Is that?
There's a bit of noise in the background, so you can go mute. Perfect, nice. Okay, so I guess Saba Kid can go next.
Okay, my name is Henry Osei. I'm a chemist by training, K University 2010. I started programming, I think, way back 2006 with C++, like I've been all around. I started with Laravel, I think 3.2, but I've been on and off. Spring Boot, talk about like any technology that comes up, I just go ahead and try. Currently, I'm much more focused on cybersecurity. I currently work with a national regulator in like a regulator. So yeah, I'm mostly like I learn from a lot of people. So I'm here to also learn. So that's a brief about me.
Nice one, Charlie. Be OG. Level 3.2.
Yeah.
Nice. Pleasure to meet you, man. Okay, I guess Gabriel can go next. He's the last person. So Gabriel can go next.
Okay. My name is Gabriel Ado. I'm a software developer at Lean Icon Technology. We teach agile methodologies over there. I started coding PHP last year, December. Went to Laravel February, started coding with Laravel February. So I'm very young in PHP and Laravel. So I'm here to learn more about PHP and Laravel. But the first language I started with was Python. Yeah, with the Django framework. So I'm here to learn more about PHP and then Laravel. Maybe it can get my attention, and Laravel or PHP will be my new love instead of Python.
So, Ruben, the pressure there on you, Charlie. What's for there?
Charlie.
Maybe so. Thanks, man. Okay, let's go on to the user. Let's keep the introductions nice and short so we can go on to the main topic. So user, just say a few words about yourself, languages you use, and how you get started. User.
Hello guys.
Yo.
Yeah, I'll be Abdul Kubis. People know me for the group inside as Alaji Aki.
So do you hear that?
So basically, I'll be software developer for GraphQL Limited. Yeah. So I'll come learn some GraphQL since yeah. So that'll be all.
Maybe so. Okay, Charlie. Then Ruben, I think that's everyone. Everyone has done the introductions. There was one guy here, but he left, so we just skip on. Over to you, Ruben, Charlie. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, let me share my screen. So I ended up by introducing myself. Okay, so I think how we are going to go about this presentation, I don't think we'll be able to, finish everything today. So today, the main thing will be on how to set up your GraphQL and then how to, create your queries in GraphQL. Is that okay? So first of all, what is GraphQL? GraphQL is said to be an open source data query manipulation language for building REST, for building APIs to replace REST. I'm sure when we Google GraphQL, we'll probably find something. GraphQL, Q, yeah. Kind of the Q and the G. I don't know if I'm the only one that it's kind of confuses. Okay, so that is the logo, of course. When you see it, you can go to the GraphQL documentation, official documentation, and you can read as much as you want to read about it. Okay, it can do very, very advanced stuff. It can be a replacement for your WebSockets and all that. It has this thing called subscription, which I've never used before. And you can also, they have a playground. I'm not too sure where it is because it's been a while I came here, where you can go and then try out certain things. Okay, so why does anyone want to use GraphQL when they can already do their REST API successfully? Okay, so GraphQL, a team of people, a Facebook, I think they're Facebook developers. So they sat down and they thought that, well, the way we do, our usual APIs where you have to hit one endpoint and hit another endpoint before you're able to get access to the kind of data you really want, it's not the best, and it's a little bit verbose. So if we could do something that only what you need is what you get, more like it. So what you request for is exactly what you will be given, then that would be awesome. So they sat down and brought up this, and you realize that when you go to your usual REST APIs, you have a lot of HTTP verbs where you have your GET request, your POST, your patch or put, and then you have the delete request. Well, when you come to GraphQL, we don't have all those. We just have one. Default is the POST. It makes only one POST request. And that POST request can be changed, though I've never changed it before. In fact, I've not really done extreme with the GraphQL, but yes, it can be changed to any, I'm sure to any endpoint HTTP verb that you want. Okay, cool. So because today's class is, today's meetup is on Laravel's, Laravel, the backend, we would do the Laravel part of GraphQL. Maybe another time we could schedule for the front end or the view part of GraphQL. And I'm even sure today's GraphQL, we are not going to finish. We're just going to touch on the surfaces and see how interesting it could be. All right. Okay. So with Laravel, you can use GraphQL, but you can use it through a package. All right, as usual, composer required. So before we even continue, for those who want to follow along, then I've my am I? Can anyone hear me? Can
Yeah, we
anyone
can
hear
hear you.
me? Is my
Yeah, we can
network
hear you.
still okay? Okay, all right, cool. Okay, so I have already created a repository for this workshop, and I have pushed it to my Bitbucket account. So I think it's a public repo. So if anybody wants it, you can just go, and then my Bitbucket name is Fancy. Yes. So I'm going to share the link to the repo and in the comments, so that if you need it, you can just go and then clone it. So as you can see, I just installed Laravel, and then I've already done some setting up of the GraphQL and pushed some what you call migration files and CEDA files, so that we can have some data to work with. Posting the so that's my stuff in the comments. I think it's a good idea if I leave
I think it's coming from Hagan. Maybe Hagan needs to
Unmute.
mute. If you can, I think you can mute Hagan. Okay, there we go.
All right. Okay. So for us to be able to use our Laravel applications with GraphQL, we have to use this package called Lighthouse. Okay. So I'm sure one of the days somebody was like, is it Lighthouse Church or Lighthouse? I was asking something on our page. Well, it's Lighthouse package, and that is what we use to GraphQL. And oh, for those who are wondering why I am in a protective code, it's not just for coding, but I work in an industrial company, so I have to double protect myself. Okay, so we use the Lighthouse package to set up our GraphQL, and if you go there, I mean, you can explore their documentation page and all that you want, but we will go straight to, I think I hit the get started. Okay. So as usual, anything new that you want to add to your package, you have to compose a require. So I've already done that. And then when you compose a require, of course, there's some stuff you need to publish. But today, this particular one is behaving funny. Okay. When I tried to publish it, it was giving me some weird error. So what I did is I just did PHP vendor publish, and then the commands came for me to choose a number, and then I think it was on the last one, number 18, that will publish the Lighthouse schema. Then I published it. Okay, so also there is this IDE supports thing. I think it's supposed to enhance your use with GraphQL and your IDE, but before you can use it, you need to first require this Hayden PS as class finder before you can set up your Lighthouse IDE helper. And then finally, for those who want to test their APIs through their browser, you can install the GraphQL Playground. You can require it in your project, but I usually don't like that. So what I tend to do is there are some desktop applications that you can use. I think GraphQL Playground. Playground. Okay, so there's this one. Is that the one I use? Let me check the one I use. Okay, I think it's the same thing. I use the GraphQL Playground, this one. But I think there's a whole lot you can, let me see. GraphQL Playground. GraphQL Playground desktop. Okay, yes. So there's this Electron JS app that you can use for testing your GraphQL API. So if you same what you call fee as Composer, Laravel, GraphQL, whatever. Okay, Cool. So I'm going to open my IDE now. Of course, it's already open, but I'm not sharing it. So let me share my IDE with you. All right. I believe you can see my IDE. And does this work? Okay. Anybody there?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Yep, all good.
You know,
All good.
Yeah, we can see
I don't trust my connection, so okay. So okay, GraphQL. Except that when I was typing the graph.
We'll tell you if it gets fucked up.
All right. Okay. So there was the GraphQL, but I didn't want you to watch me type Laravel new and all that. So what I have done is that if you go to my .env, of course, I've only created this database called GraphQL Workshop, and of course, the only thing I have there is my username and then my password. Then because when you follow the installation we went through a while ago, you would have this new folder called GraphQL, and it will hold the schema file, which we'll come to it shortly. But then I want to also take you to some other things that, okay, so I created a migration file because for the purpose of this workshop, we'll be working with two sets of tables. That is our user table, the default one, and then a customer table. So I've created a migration file for of course, the user table is the default one Laravel gives you. So I haven't done anything to this. If you are using Laravel 7, okay, I think very soon we'll be probably have to rejoin. So the default user table is what I'm using. Then if you go to the customers table, I have this, I'm making use of the foreign ID, which I think came in Laravel 6, Laravel 7, for creating a relationship, for creating the foreign key relationship with my, what do you call, with my users table. Okay, I think maybe I'll love to add what's the cascade something I've forgotten. I think here when you use this, you're supposed to do something like this. Constraint. Forgot to add it. And is it cascade on delete? On delete. Yeah. Okay. On delete. If I'm not typing it wrong, I think so. So maybe I'll probably have to rerun my migration, but I'm not going to do that because it's just for demonstration. Okay, so yes, with this, then I have my factory, so the default user factory, and my customer factory, which holds this fake data. And then finally, in my seeds, I have my customer seeder. There's nothing in it because I didn't really use it. How I used it is I was reading some blog posts. So I used this method instead where I called it, there was something I did. Yes, but let me see. Okay, yes, this is the one I'm looking for. So I used the user seeder and then created the user and directly through the relationship. Okay, the relationship I have between the user and the customer, I created this seeder. Okay, so if I go to my user model, because I wanted to do that, I've already set up this guarded and then of course user relationship with the customer. So my customer, my user has many customers basically. Is that okay? All right. Okay, so now this is just Laravel stuff. This has nothing to do with GraphQL or any such thing. So the real deal when it comes to GraphQL is your schema file that is generated. So I'm closing out some of these files so that I can have space. Okay, close out. All right. So let me close this. And I don't even think I'll need this. Okay, so this is why we are here. Now, if you publish the file, by default, this is what will be found in your schema.graphql file. Okay. Now, this schema actually, what it does is that it's more like a template of your database and then the tables and every other thing you may necessarily be doing with your GraphQL application. Okay, so we have types and then we have mutations, we have subscriptions. Yes, like I mentioned, let me quickly go on the Lighthouse documentation and see if can find something out. Okay, so the schema. Great. So this is what we have. Okay, and as you can see, we have a query that will be responsible for handling the queries you'll be running. The mutation is what is used to manipulate your data. So your create, read, update, delete. Mutation will be the person handling it. And then I remember I was talking about using GraphQL for WebSocket stuff, those kind of things. So the subscription is what can be used for that. There's a whole other things that can be used. Also, we have directives. This is something we'll be using a lot. Okay, so I'm going back to our code. Okay, so
What are the scalar? What was the scalar daytime? What's scalar?
oh, okay, this one. Well, the scalar I have not used it before, but it's the default that comes with publishing the GraphQL file. Okay, so we can go on the documentation and then find out what it is. API reference scalars. Okay, so
You can just go ahead with it.
yes.
I was just wondering. We can take a look at it later. But don't worry, just go ahead.
So basically that is for the scalars. So I will not be using that. I've not used it before. But then my main focus right now is on this type of user. So this type of user here represents the table that I have created. Okay, so if I go to database, and this one too is default. When you publish, this is what it gives you. So let me see if there's anything missing. Okay, so apart from the foreign ID, my first name, last name, is this? No, there's a customer table. It's not the user. So name, email, password. I'm not sure you would want to ever query for password to your front end. Okay, so it is the same thing. So what this means is that the only data that will be available whenever you query this particular user type. Okay, so we use a type for that to represent our tables and other stuff, data store or whatever that we may be using. So what it means is that outside of these fields, you cannot get any other field, and that is what freaks me out a little because like I said, I'm not really getting a lot of resource when it comes to Laravel View. I'm sure those with React and those other solutions are getting something more because when you are using your regular Laravel database, MySQL, those stuff, you can alias columns. For instance, when you are running aggregate columns, and then you can get by default a column name created for you on the fly, just like how MySQL works. But then I realized it doesn't work like that with GraphQL. So I don't know if somebody already knows how to go about it, but the only way I found my way around it is let's say I wanted to some way, somehow tell you the number of users I had. What I would have to do is, of course, these ones represent the attributes. I'll go there shortly, but I just want to talk about this before. So let's say user count. I'll have to create it as this, and then probably the return type is an int. This is the only way. Then when I alias, so something like, let me go to my thinker. PHP. When I go to my thinker and let's see a user where what should I even run with some of the aggregate columns? User, help me out with some of the aggregate column. User, let's see where. Let me just trying to.
Your brackets, I guess.
No, I'm trying to get some of the aggregate columns I could run. Trying to demonstrate. Let me quickly go to Laravel's official docs, Laravel aggregate functions. Okay, so looks like all the aggregate functions have all of a sudden run away from my head. So
before we go on, I think we have like 1 minute, and then we'll have to rejoin.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then I'll be here until we have to rejoin. So queries, aggregates. What can I? Yes, I've remembered what I want to do. So I don't know if I should do it now. So user, let's say select, and I have name. So count. No, no count. I have to do set. Okay. I believe you can see my screen.
You can see him.
Yep.
Okay, so I was trying to remember some of my aggregate functions that I used to run, and I seem to all of a sudden they seem to have vanished from my head. So let me see total. I hope this works. So db raw max name, no, not max, of course, count name as total, select. Let's see if this will work. Okay, good. So that's what I'm looking for. So you see how I'm able to do this with our usual stuff. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that with GraphQL unless I add this extra. If I wanted to, though, I would have to add it as part of my type. So now let's talk about the type. So the type, so that we can do along aside the default, let us create. We have our customer table. So let's create the type for our customer. You remember I said type represents your table, basically the table that you're working with, and any columns that you would want your front end to be able to query. So we are creating a type for our customers table. So use the keyword type and we'll say customer, like a model. All right. And so also you can see that it looks more like creating, I don't know, should I say object or whatever it is. So our ID, and then we use, this is the syntax, our ID, and then it has some data types, okay, that you use. Let me put this there before I explain. So it has some data types that are allowed. I think any other ones that are not in the data type that you want, you would have to, create that type for yourself. So for instance, if I want to return a type of customer, I'll have to, there's a way to go about it. There are more complex things you can do. But then basically what I've typed here means that the ID that is allowed here is of type ID, your database ID, and it is required. So we use the bank sign or the exclamation mark to represent that that particular thing is required. So if I don't feel this is required, I take it off. But if it's required, I bring it back. So let's go and look for the next thing. The next thing will come back to you. Let's go to the first name. We have first name, last name, phone number. They're all strings. Okay, so uh, first name, and this will be of type string, right? So it's required. The next one, there's no comma or any such thing. You just hit your enter and you move to the next line. So last name of type uh, string as well. It's also required. I don't think there's, okay, phone number. Okay, so phone number. Let me see. Okay, so I'm using the IntelliSense to get the types available. So there's string, there's int, there's date, there's ID, there's date time, there's user. User is because we've created this type, okay, that custom type, user, boolean, float. Okay, so of course this one too is a string and it's also required. So basically with this, we have imitated what is supposed to be in our data table or in our customers table. Okay. Any questions before I proceed? Let me go back to our schema. Anybody having any question? Okay.
No for me.
Okay. So if we don't have any questions yet, then I think we understand how basically the type works. Okay. Now you would want to ask, okay, well, we have this customer user ID because we have this relationship we need to establish. Okay, so how do you go about that if you are using GraphQL? Okay, so to build this relationship, what you have to do is there are directives to help you. Like I said, directives are something you'll be using a lot if you are using this particular package. I think this. So let's go back to our schema. Now I want to define the relationship between the user table or user type and then the customer type. First of all, I'm going to do it in my model and then I'll come back to my schema and do it. Okay. So there is by default, not by default, but I type this. Let me open my model for user. Okay. So this is the usual way that we do our how do you call? We set up our relationship. So our customer has our user has many customers, and then our customer has one user. But when you go on the GraphQL documentation, it is recommended that you put an explicit return type on your relationship. And I think I struggled with something about this relationship and its query, but I don't really remember. So, but that's what they recommend. So this is a has many. So you put a return type of has many. And honestly, before GraphQL, I didn't know you could use a has many in this way. So maybe those of you who are already aware of these ones can probably throw more light on the page. And then here, it's a belongs to, right? Right. Yes, it's a belongs to. So we'll also have to, wait, I put the has many here. Do I have anything like belongs to? Yeah, belongs to. Okay, so this is how I did it. now when I go to my schema, what I can do now is how I want to call this particular type. And for some weird reasons, I usually like my relationships to follow either my ID, I don't know, this personal preference. So I'm going to put it here. So on my user, I want to have this, what's the name? Customers. Okay. And the return type should be an eloquent model. So how do I do that? I use, and because also I'm expecting a collection, I'll use the double, how do we call it, square brackets to represent that this eloquent should return a collection. They call it what? Sub selection. Yeah, sub selection. So return, the model is customer. And if I want to indicate that this is a required something, as usual by now you should know, we will use the bank sign. And now I have to specify the relationship here with the directive at user has many. And I'll go to our customer and then also specify the inverse. So this one, I'm going to call it user because I'm not expecting a collection. I'm just expecting a single user to have this, and it's also required. So basically, we have created two tables. We have set up a relationship between these two tables. And with that, I believe we've gone a long way into our GraphQL lessons. Basically, I can also, if I, so that you know that I don't need this, I'm just getting rid of it. Except that I may have missed the type. Oh, I don't need it, but I don't know why. When I delete it, I'm getting directing. Let me comment it
I
down.
think maybe dates alone can go,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah,
the
yeah,
type definition for dates time you need.
yeah. So basically, if I want to delete it, I would have to get rid of these ones. Then I'll keep it. Until now, I never knew why it was there. Okay, so I'm keeping it. Maybe for serial, I think this will even answer our question as to what does this do and all that, the scalar. So it is supporting the date and time for us. Okay. Okay, so now let's see, this is the API we want to build. We have defined our types, we've created our migrations and all that. Then we want to query our relationship, sorry, our database. Okay, so by default, when we publish this schema, it came with these two queries. Okay, so let's note something before we proceed. We use types to define these ones, but we use queries to write any query you want. So if we wanted another query, I don't know if it is right to do that, but I've not seen anybody come do its own type and then say query. Maybe it will work, but I don't even think it would. So you don't have to redefine it. So with the query, what we do is you define all your queries here. Okay. So basically, this query we see here uses. What it means is that when we call this, it will return to us an instance of a collection, yes, of users, and it's required, and then it will also paginate it. In GraphQL, pagination can also mean a whole lot of stuff. So I don't even want to talk about it. It's, let me say, it's a little advanced. Okay, so the pagination thing there will paginate the fields that we receive from this query. And here we have another query. What does this mean? This query here means that we are expecting parameters. We are expecting, if we were using our usual, let me go to our web routes or API route, whatever. I love web routes, so let me keep the web. Okay, So what we would have done as let's say routes, probably get, and we'll say RESTful customers slash wildcard and the customer, and probably would have specified our customers controller at, and this one, what do we even call for this route? And let's say update. Maybe if we're updating, then of course it's not get patch, whatever. Okay, so the point I want to make here is this wildcard. In GraphQL, we accept wildcards by using a parameter to that query that you are passing. So this query of user will accept, and you see this one too, it checks the type that you are passing to the query. So whatever we pass, it has to be of type ID. Otherwise, this will return an error when we query for it. So it has to be an eloquent, I think is it equals or eloquent, one of them. And we use this directive, just like how you would have gone to your thinker and say user find one. Okay, so Gardner left line. Okay, so basically that is what this is doing for us. So how do we test to see if what we've done so far is working? That is where the playground comes in. So if you are using the playground that was done through if you don't have the desktop app and you installed the one that the installation said you should follow and do, then what you would do is whatever your endpoint is, if it's localhost, you put slash GraphQL, I should believe, GraphQL, and it will get you to your playground. But I don't use this. I use the desktop application. So let me quickly whip it up. Okay. So this is my playground. And of course, your server has to be running. Otherwise, when you attempt to hit your server, it will complain. So I've not used this local, I don't know, it says select folder, but I've never used it. I always use the URL endpoint. So I'll type, I'm using localhost of type 8000, and I'll put this slash GraphQL so that I can hit the GraphQL playground. And then when I open, great. So usually when you open, you don't get anything. This is what you get. But then if you have used it for other stuff, okay, I have some queries here. Now it's saying failed to fetch schema, please, blah, blah, blah. Server cannot be reached. Basically, I have not started the Laravel server. So I come here, PHP. Those of us who don't use Vagrant and all the fancy things, we go with our server. And cool, my server is started now. So if I come here, the issue is gone. Great. So the way we would query, so as you can see, this is a query. So whatever we are going to type in between is supposed to be a query that we have defined in our schema. So like I said, when it comes to GraphQL, it's mostly going to be your schema, maybe resolvers, and then probably some directives. But most of your time, you'll be spending on your schema and custom resolvers when you have them. So we want to query for user. We want to use this one. We want to fetch a user with a specific ID. Okay. So how do I go about that? When I come here, and if you also do it well, you get this IntelliSense, yes, to help you with a suggestion. So you have to specify the parameter you are expecting. So we are expecting an ID. And let's say I want a user with an ID of 1. And then what would you do again? You bring, like as if you are defining a function. Okay, so this is where the difference between the REST and the GraphQL comes to play. Okay, so here what I'm going to type in between this these curly brackets are the columns I'm expecting from the user with the ID of 1. So the user before, let me show you what I have in the user table. Like I said, it's the default one, so there's nothing fancy. The name, the email. So if I want just the name and I hit my play button, lo and behold, I get just the name. And look at the structure of the return type. Apart from the data that we all know about it, what we get is almost the same as what we requested for. Okay, so if I want the email to, then I can include it and then now hit it. And then it returns with the name and the email. So I think one thing I've also realized is you can alias this, I think. So let's say this was nickname. I'm not too sure about this. I'm not too sure about this. I'm not too sure about it. But when you are using your the front end, you're able to alias. I don't know why this one throws an error, but when I'm using my front end, I'm able to alias the name of the fields that is being returned. But basically, this is it. So you realize it returns just what we have requested for. Let's try this. I've never tried it before. Create it and see if it will come. So that is it. And if we go to our schema, we can be sure that we had this. Okay, so it was there, created that. Now, let me comment it out and then try to hit it again. And then it complains. Cannot query failed, created that on type user. Did you mean updated that? So even the error tries to suggest to you what you may be trying to do. Okay, so in our situation, we realize that this name matches up with updated app. So yes, let's see, it was not created app that we wanted, but we wanted updated app, and we can hit it, and then we get the updated app. Cool. So let me go and then uncomment what I commented so that we still have this. And if I remember this particular one, the paginate, I've forgotten. But let's see. So comment this. So the query is called users. Okay. And I want the first 10, if I remember. Let's say, I don't remember this name. Nah. Okay, let me go and do the simple one. Okay, let me duplicate this. Okay, so instead of paginating, I think there's a directive for all. Yes. So I'm not going to do pagination. Take away your pagination. So I'm going back to this. Okay, and usually when you update the way the desktop app works, if you want, sometimes you see issues with your queries, it might not be picking it up because if you wanted to pick up what you have in your schema, you may have to refresh your, how do you call, your playground so that it picks it up. But let me try this. Okay, so you see that even though it's giving me a red arrow, but my query is still working. It's because when I added this query, I didn't restart my, what do you call, playground. Okay, so I don't know if there's a workaround how you can make it auto, whatever. But then this is it. So this particular query I run right now is querying, we know when we go to our thinker, what you would have done as PHP, uh, user or, okay. And look at this. If we were using REST, this is the kind of information we would have had, or maybe would have had to select explicitly the columns that we want. But here we are getting exactly what we want. We just want the name, and the name is what we get. If I say, okay, now I want email to as part of this query, then it goes and returns with the emails as part. So you see, because it returns a collection, you see this bracket representation over there. And when we come to our schema, you realize that we also had it there. So it means we are expecting a collection. Okay, what will happen if we don't put this there? Let's see. Let's get rid of this and get rid of that and just say at all and see what do we get. Okay, so cannot return null of non-nullable field user.name. All right, because this returns a collection. Okay, and let me read this particular error message. It says cannot return null of non-nullable field username user.name. Okay, so I believe that error is probably because of this. But well, if you're expecting a collection, you would have to surround it with your array syntax like or whatever. And because it's required, we are also putting our bang sign on it. So it's required that it's an array, and then it is required that the type should be a user type. Awesome. Oh, okay. So I think this is a great intro. So any questions?
Yep. I have a few questions. So, I mean, when the first time I looked at GraphQL, yeah, the selling point was the fact that, say, I mean, with REST, if you wanted to render, let's say I have a simple page, right?
Yeah.
I want to render orders that are coming in. I want to get, let's say on that same screen, I have the orders, I have how much in sales I've made, all of that. With REST, what would have happened is I would have like, say, 3 different endpoints that I hit. And then when I hit those endpoints, I'm hitting one to get everything about pricing. I'm hitting one to get me everything about orders. And the whole selling point, what Facebook sold was that instead of making these individual requests, I can make it all in one request by forming a query. It's more or less like a more dumbed down way to think about it is like being able to write SQL queries from the front end to get. And the second selling point was that you can request for data that you need, not just like pricing and then orders, but even with orders, I can say I just need how much each user is paying and then the name of the user. Then I don't have to get everything like what Eloquent will return. So, I mean, these selling points for me makes sense. But then what I've never understood is why a whole new structure where you have to learn a whole new structure because you need to understand how you craft your GraphQL queries.
Yeah.
Whereas, let's say with something like REST, there's a way to, with REST, you can still achieve all of this because, like, for example, I can craft one endpoint to return the pricing and then the orders, and then also I can just return the data that I need.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm building a simple app, this is easy to achieve with REST. In Facebook's case, their main point was that they have a mobile app and then they have a web app and then they want to write one endpoint and then it feeds to both without having to do much work. But would you say for a simple app, it makes sense to just stick with REST and then be able to achieve some of these things? Like if I need pricing and orders on one page, then I write one endpoint that feeds me that. If it's just a web app I'm building or it's just a small team, a small product, it's something I can achieve. Would you say it's easier to just go with GraphQL, learn everything, and then just work with that? Or you would say there are sometimes you just hack REST and then get it done?
Okay, so in my opinion, I would say that go with your regular REST. If your app is small, even especially when you are working with, like I said in the beginning, Laravel and Vue, trust me, there is a little community. In fact, I created a thread on Twitter trying to, get the attention of those things. They have what do you call? We're running out of time again. They have this Slack page where you could go and ask questions. But basically, if you are creating a small application, like you said, you'd have to now come and recreate more like your database structures again, which when some of the things we are doing here, you could just simply use your eager loading to probably fetch those extra information whenever you hit that particular route. Is that not it? So I would say go for REST, and unless you are in a team where it is required that you use GraphQL or you are trying to experiment GraphQL or you're trying to experiment and maybe there's a resource you can follow along, then fine. But otherwise, go for REST. Unfortunately, that's what I'll say. Because personally, I was doing this on a project and I got stuck. I'm sure you saw it on the page. I got stuck with this.
Yeah, I think I saw a question
Yes,
sometime ago.
I got stuck with this this alias running these. I just couldn't get anything to assist me. It was just a wild guess I had to do, and I was able to do that. But on the technical side, well, go for it if it's necessary. Otherwise, stick with REST.
Okay, one last question, then I'll let someone else take over. So, besides, I mean, we all know Facebook is definitely using GraphQL because they came up with it. Do you know any other projects, like prominent projects or products that are actively using GraphQL?
Yes, GitHub has a GraphQL version of it, so you
Right,
can
true.
probably check it out. I think GitHub has a GraphQL version of this.
Yeah, they do. That just came to mind. True. Okay, so yeah, actually, speaking of GitHub, so you see, this is a good one. So in for example, in GitHub's case, they have a lot of data points to expose. So from
Exactly.
like your repo history all the way to your account management and all of that. I think that's a perfect use case for GraphQL, where like you have this product where you need to expose endpoints to users, and it's like you can't think through all the possible data points to release to the end users. I feel like that's a perfect use case for GraphQL. So you give the users the power to craft whatever query they need, however they want it to get data. So it's like you put GraphQL on top of your data set, your database or data set or within your app somewhere, and then users are able to craft it however they want. I feel like that's a perfect use case. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather do that. I'd rather use it in that form where I'm exposing my data to end users to do whatever they want, as opposed to adding it to my web app just to use it on the front end. I mean, it also depends. If I have like a very mobile heavy kind of application, I'll probably also use it there. Okay, all right,
Exactly.
thanks.
Exactly. And there's also a school of thought that says that sticking with going with GraphQL, you're exposing too much to your front end, and the front end does not need to understand or know everything about your data structure and all that blah blah blah. There's also that school of thought. So
Yeah, that makes
this is
sense.
our space. It's about what works for you, more like.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's true. Some of the endpoints you don't imagine. If someone got hold of your mobile app, they'll probably just
yeah,
take the endpoints out and then do whatever they want to do.
exactly. They will
Yeah, that
have
makes sense.
access to all your data structure.
hmm Yeah, that was also a concern. Valid one, actually.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. So anybody else? Okay. So as we wait, I'm going to push this to the GitHub. I'm sorry, the Bitbucket repo. Then um, if you need it, you can go for it. But we'll definitely continue this. This is not the end of the GraphQL session. There's more to learn. Um, Today, I'm sure Eddie can testify that my I was having something else to do. It's comment dash m. I think we have something that right. Let me see what we have in the chat. Okay, Instagram to playground.
I think you meant the link to the playground, and then I think the GitHub link was shared, but we lost it in the old chat.
Okay, let me
So
share
maybe
it
you might
again.
want to share it again.
So,
but if anyone has any other questions, like
yes, if anybody has any questions or suggestions, because trust me, if you are in Laravel and you are trying to do GraphQL, trust me when I say it's a headache. It's a real headache. I'm sure the only probably video tutorial you might get will be Andre Magraham's or Andre himself. That's his Twitter handle. It's very, very difficult to get resources on it. Very. So
I think once this chat ends, then we can just finish it off. So like we have 4 minutes just in case someone has it. Unless of course someone has a question, then you can
sure.
rejoin again. But otherwise, once this is done, then yeah. I think
Yeah, I
that's
was
been
saying
a
that
good session.
the link to this one, the playground he was using.
Oh,
It's
okay.
shared in the chat. Oh.
Let
The
me
software itself.
the GraphQL playground desktop.
Oh, okay.
Let me put it here for you. So if you want, I don't know, should I put it in the WhatsApp so that if our chat ends?
Yeah, you should. That's easier. Yeah.
Okay, so this is to the desktop app, and let me where's my okay?
So like with something like this, you see, REST has, especially with Laravel, REST has basically you can use Passport for authentication stuff and security stuff like that. With this one, is it built into it or?
No, it's not built into it, but everything you can actually do with REST, you can do with GraphQL. You can do authentication, you can do validation. I'm sure for validation, I know a way around it, so we would go through that. You can do everything you can do with your REST. But
Okay,
then,
but like are these separate packages you have to install? Yeah, it's all baked into the whole thing.
okay, I honestly I've not tried it,
Into the
but
library, the Lighthouse library.
so you see, the Lighthouse actually works with Laravel. It's a Laravel specific package. Okay, so I should believe there is this
Okay.
point between where maybe I'm sure probably you would have to install the passport or whatever you want to use for it to work. I'm not too sure about it. Okay, most of the things I'm saying, aside what you are seeing works, some of them are my personal, hypothesis that I've come up with trying to work with GraphQL. So maybe I may be wrong, maybe I may be right, but I think if you would have to do all those things, you would have to probably still install passports and all those things. Nonetheless, you can
Okay.
go to the Lighthouse documentation and check it out.
Okay.
Because there's a lot, but the community, and that's why I don't know. You see, for
It seems really geared towards the JavaScript community, especially the GraphQL. This one.
yes, because it's Facebook, and
Oh,
Facebook
okay.
is pushing React, right?
Yeah.
So I have a whole, I think I had a PDF file for React and GraphQL. I don't know how Adam and his team
Mm.
use Rails with GraphQL, but I can see Adam really loves GraphQL. We just have 1 minute left. Adam really loves GraphQL, but when you come to Laravel, it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
Actually, apart from this package, there's only one other package that I know that you can use. I've even forgotten the name.
Maybe it might be as a result of PHP going becoming less popular or something. I don't know.
Hey, you've sparked another fire. Eddie, should we rejoin or should we end it?
I mean, it depends on you guys.
I
If
think
others
we
have
should
questions or you
we
want to
should end it
continue.
and then really structure it into parts so that maybe next week we'll tackle another part of
No, we mean
Okay,
this particular.
that was something.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because I think